Thomas Sowell spent his life studying social and economic questions. He wanted to find out how people could improve their lives and how America, the most free country in the world, enabled him to do so. He has written many books explaining what he won over the years, but what he has to teach us is only in his books. Not only in his books, his wife tells us a lot too. Thomas Sowell started out in life at a Hoogstief Francis. He was raised by his great aunt in a poor town in the south. Growing up, he never got the chance to know his mother and father, and he often had no money for new shoes or even for bus fare. But Thomas Sowell succeeded because whatever he wanted, he went, and whatever he did, he never accepted anything he didn't think he deserved. He wanted nothing unearned, asked for nobody's pity. Thomas Sowell was determined to make it on his own, and he did. Thomas Sowell was born in 1930 in North Carolina during the time of segregation in the South. Back then, many Americans living in conditions that are hard for us to imagine today. There were homes without running hot water, electricity, or indoor toilets. Thomas' childhood home was like this. The Sowell had those kerosene lamps for light, and when Tommy, he was caught when he was little, needed a bath, they would heat the water on wood-burning stove, fill up a portable. But Tommy didn't know he was poor. He just thought this was how everyone lived. He didn't know any rich people, so he had nothing to compare his experience to. The woman who raised Tommy was named Molly. She was his father's aunt, but Tommy just called her Mama. Tommy never met his father because he passed away before Tommy's mother Rose gave birth to him. When Tommy's father learned he was sick, he asked his aunt to take in Tommy and raise him as her own. This is because Rose already had 4 children, and the money she earned as a maid was enough to support another child. When Tommy was still small, Rose would sometimes come over to fix it. She just had to see her little boy, even if only for a little while. Neither Rose nor Aunt Molly told Tommy who she really was. Rose always took it hard. She would bite her lip to keep from crying. Her heart would break each time she left. But Tommy was not a sad boy, not at all. Aunt Molly had two grown daughters, Buddy and Ruth, and they loved Tommy very much. Buddy especially was very close with Tommy, and she pampered him whenever she could. The Sowells didn't have many books. There were a few interesting ones for children, and they had the Bible, of course. But those were enough for Buddy to teach Tommy to read. By age 4, he could read on his own. Aunt Molly also had a Proctor whom Tommy called Daddy. He was very active in his church. He was also very proud to be a white baby Tommy's wife. He took whether Tommy took church, and with a baby and brother in his pocket, made an announcement to the congregation. Folks, he said, I no longer have time for my church. Did this, and now have a beautiful baby boy who depends on me. When Tommy grows up, he used to love to hear the story. Of course, he was too young to remember it himself. Back then in town, Gloucester, South Carolina, nearly everyone in Tommy's neighborhood was black. These were the days of Jim Crow laws in the South. These laws separated Americans based on color. It was unfair. Blacks had to go to separate schools, ride in separate buses, and eat at separate restaurants. So when Tommy was little, he rarely saw white people at all. In fact, when he did see white people, they were usually characters in comic books. He wasn't sure if real people actually looked like that, especially the one with blonde hair. He thought, how could hair be lower? But with this idea, when he was almost 9 years old, Aunt Molly took Tommy to within New York City. Imagine what a shock it must have been. New York was rich and full of people of our race, rich and ethnic. And to Tommy's surprise, some of them even had lower hair. The teachers in New York thought education down south wasn't worth very much, so when Tommy first arrived at his new school, they figured he'd be better off repeating third grade. Tommy didn't like that. He didn't like that at all, not going to third grade. He informed the teachers, I'm going to fourth, and not up to each other, said a tall teacher with a long face. Then I like to see the principal, Tommy replied. The teachers were puzzled. Children were supposed to be afraid to see the principal. He's too busy now, said the teacher, with a red tie, folding his arms on his chest. Wait then, said Tommy. He folded his arms on his chest too. Teachers looked at each other. Maybe the principal could teach this kid a lesson, they thought. But the principal wasn't moved, and with the course, who is this headstrong 9-year-old? He wondered, and how on earth did he become so self-confident? He decided to give Tommy some difficult math problems to prove that fourth grade was beyond his abilities. Imagine his surprise when Tommy solved them all right then and there. But the principal said to the teacher looking up from Tommy's work, "Take this young man to 4th grade where he belongs." Tommy loved baseball and could hold his own there. He wasn't the best player, but he wasn't the worst one either. And above all, he really liked to play. So he did experience it when one day a bunch of other boys tried to take over the field in the middle of the game. The man named Thomas said to his friends, "Just keep playing." When one of the older boys, one much bigger and taller than Tommy, told him to beat it, Tommy looked him right in the eye. "You'll have to make me do that," he said. Then he tightened his grip on the bat. He was going to stand his ground, come what may. The older boy glanced back at his friends, then down at Tommy, then at the bat. Whatever he muttered, then he turned and walked away. Whereas Tommy was a very stubborn kid, which was sometimes a good thing, and sometimes not so much. Tommy's grades were very good, so he was accepted to one of New York's best schools, Sowell High School. It was a very demanding place. There was so much homework that Tommy often had to stay up late at night to do it all. Sometimes he finished after sunrise, just in time to get ready for school. And when the weekend came around, Tommy still had no time to relax. His family could afford his subway rides to and from school or the food for his wants. So he had to pay for it all himself. He spent the weekends running up and down the Sugar Hill neighborhood of Harlem delivering groceries. Because Tommy was the first member of his family to go to high school, and Molly couldn't understand why he had to spend so much time in the library. Why couldn't he work in the afternoon to help the family out? They began to argue. She would shout at him, and he would shout right back. Finally, Tommy couldn't take it anymore. He decided to quit school, and not long after that, he left home too. And as you well know, when Tommy made up his mind, it was very hard to make him change it. But indeed, Tommy could be very stubborn, and so he bought a cheap cardboard suitcase, and handed out the door. He went off into the big, wide open world to make it on his own. He was just 17 years old. For the first time, when Tom found himself all alone, he felt an intoxicating sense of freedom. No less. Nobody could tell him what to do. At the same time, thought he had nobody to rely on, nobody that is except himself. Tom did have a job though, as a master for Luxor Union, as he rode the Fifth Avenue bus on his way to deliver packages. He would look out the window and wonder. All the different he saw around the way. Downtown, the buildings were beautiful, clean, and well maintained. But uptown, there were one-down buildings with laundry hanging on strings across narrow alleyways. Why do some people have so little in London while others have so much? And how could people who have little move up in life? When Tom Ross's job said questions became more personal and more urgent too. He was sure about one thing, though. The answer was a begging or asking for favors. He would solve his own problems by himself, thank you very much. With little money he had saved quickly running out, he was forced to cut back on his food. He found a place on the wall east side that sold stale dry day old bread for 5 cents and jars and of jelly for 10. Tom would walk all the way down there just to save on subway fare. So for days and days, he ate nothing but dry bread and jelly until at last he found a new job. Things improved when Tom took a position as a command cook in Washington, D.C. It was nice to work indoors for a change, but when he stepped outside for once, it was far less nice. The city was still segregated back then, which meant most restaurants were only for whites. Tom would have to walk some distance to find a place where he could eat. There was still another problem with this job. It bore him. Tom began to feel that he had made several mistakes and realized he should have never left school. But he wasn't the kind of guy to sit around feeling sorry for himself. He didn't dwell on the past or blame Aunt Martha, the parties, his teachers, or mentors. Instead, he turned his attention to the future and took matters into his own hands. He decided to enroll in night classes. Now, instead of going home to relax after work, he spent his evening catching up on his education. This time, Tom took his education seriously, eventually moved from night classes to full-time degree. First at Howard University, then at Harvard Columbia, and the University of Chicago. Once done with his studies, he became a professor at Cornell University. The man who had grown up in a home with no electricity or running hot water had become Professor Thomas Sowell. And now, as a esteemed professor, Thomas was in a position to help others, and he was about to learn a valuable lesson about what really helps and what does not. It all started with a student in one of his classes who seemed like she was in trouble. She came from a far away country in Africa, and her English wasn't so great. She was also very shy. She was afraid to speak up in class and ask for help when there was something she didn't understand. From one week to the next, she fell far behind. She sat paralyzed in her chair, hoping Professor didn't ask her to speak. And then one day, he finally did. The class fell silent, all eyes on her. Well, Professor said, "What do you think?" But she said no answer. "I don't know," she said. and looked down at her shoes. Her voice very more audible than a whisper. Thomas asked her to come to see him after class. Once in his office, he started to cry. Tears ran down her cheeks and fell slightly on her lap. Her family had worked so hard to send her all the way to America. She said, how could she disappoint them by failing out of school? Her story touched Thomas. He really wanted to help her. Maybe he thought he should just give her a passing grade. But after speaking to a friend about it, he was reminded why he never wanted anyone to do him such misguided favor. So a fake grade would make them feel good for a little while, but if she got a grade she didn't deserve for the studies she did do, how could she go back to her own country and become a teacher herself? How could she teach what she had not really won? He had a bad idea. Instead, give her a fake grade. Professor Sowell offered to tutor her before every class. It was very hard at first, but he was not giving up on her. And what do you know? With the zero accent, she won. She began to catch up with the class. In the end, she earned that passing grade. It was a very high one, but it was hers, the real fruit of her real efforts. Who should have seen her beaming smile when she won? She had success. She succeeded against all odds. She done it, and most importantly, she done it herself. Thomas Sowell returned to the question understand undeserved favors in his many books, lectures, newspapers, articles. He insists that in the long run they just don't help people improve their lives, no matter how good the intentions. That because if we give people something they don't earn, they would learn how to earn it themselves. Thomas also practiced what he preached when he was offered prestigious job just because he was black. He turned it down. He would not accept a position his champions did not justify. In his eyes, nothing good could come of getting something who did it on. Thomas Sowell also became famous for speaking out against unequal treatment. He became so famous, in fact, that he was invited to talk to Congress and got into an argument with Senator named Joe Biden, the same Joe Biden who would later become president of the United States. Thomas claimed that everyone, regardless of skin color, would receive equal treatment under the law. Unequal treatment was wrong when people intended were bad, like with Jim Crow laws in the South. Unequal treatment was also wrong when people intentions were good, like giving people disfranchised regard to the real image. That because just like fake grades unknown advances won't help people succeed in the long run. Some signals and many had good intentions, did not agree, but as who might have guessed, Thomas determined he wasn't about to back down, even in the face of very powerful people. Just right, he hasn't backed down in the face of bigger, taller boys on the baseball field. He didn't care if his parents were unpopular. What mattered to him was stand up for what he thought was right. Some powerful people didn't put Thomas Sowell wear pants. One of them was President Ronald Reagan. The president wanted Thomas to serve in his cabinet as Secretary of Labor. Thomas said he was honored, but he would have to turn the offer down. Later, he was offered the post of Secretary of Education too. Again, he turned it down. That because he believed he could do more by writing books. By and time has proven right. His ideas have taken on a life of its own. Thomas Sowell's words continue to influence the hearts and minds of all sorts of people. We can find his wisdom everywhere on social media, in classrooms, in newspapers, in podcasts, and videos on the bookshelves around the world. We do have just encountered them right here in this rare book we hold it in our hand. And as surely as the sun rises, we will find ourselves one day, maybe tomorrow, maybe even years from now, thinking about the ideas Thomas Sowell. And maybe one day, if we find ourselves in a tough spot of our own, with these ideas will help you find a way to make things better. Thomas Sowell was a photographer for the United States Marine Corps, and his son John was almost 4 years old when he began to speak. John turned out to be very bright as a youth. He was scratched just champagne. Thomas Sowell written more than 30 books. One of them was about late-talking children. He knows for his written observer. He once said it's amazing how much panic one honest man can spread among multitude of hypocrites. He began to believe in the future of the free market after he works at a company for the United States government. One of his teachers at the University of Chicago was Milton Friedman, who won the Nobel Prize in Economics. Friedman was one of the most famous advocates of free market capitalism. He kept writing research columns till he was 86 years old. He stopped so he could focus on photography.